The silent man from Earth. The chamber of stars was loud. Voices of many alien species echoed across the high ceiling. Some shouted, others laughed. The peace table was full, but the mood was far from peaceful. In the center of it all, one chair remained empty. Then the doors opened. A human walked in. He wore a plain black coat. No medals, no symbols, nothing to show rank or power. His steps were quiet but firm. His face showed no emotion, just tired eyes. The room fell silent for a moment. Then, soft laughter began again. "This is the great human negotiator?" A tall lizard-like diplomat whispered. "He looks like he just woke up from a cave." A bird-faced ambassador flapped her feathers. They could have at least sent someone impressive. The human sat down. He didn't look at anyone. Didn't speak. A soft voice from the council leader broke the silence. "You may speak, human. We are listening." He looked up slowly. "Peace," he said. "I came to offer peace." The room stayed quiet for a second. Then the laughter returned. Louder. This time. "Peace? After what your kind did on Verney 7, shouted a red-skinned warlord. "You humans call that peace?" Mocked a thin, glowing alien. "Your peace ends with cities burning." The human's face did not change. He simply looked at the speaker, then looked away. "We want to avoid what comes next," he said calmly. "This table is your last chance." "Are you threatening us?" said the bird-faced ambassador, eyes wide. "No," he said. "I'm warning you." Another round of laughter exploded. "Earth sends a child to play with monsters," someone joked. The human stood up. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He just looked at the council and spoke again. "You had your chance." Those were the last words he said. He turned and walked out of the chamber. Not fast, not slow, just calm and quiet. The guards didn't stop him. They were too confused, too unsure. The doors closed behind him. The chamber was silent again, but not like before. The laughter was gone. Now it was an empty silence. The council looked at each other. Some smiled nervously. Others began to whisper. What did he mean? Was it just a bluff? They won't really leave the table, right? But deep down, in a place they didn't want to admit, a strange feeling had begun to grow. A feeling they had not felt in years. Fear. Because humans didn't send many negotiators. And when they did, they listened. But if even the negotiator walked away, what came after him later that night? The head of the Security Council reviewed the human's file. His name was Silas Gray. Age, unknown. History, sealed. Rank, none. Just one note sat at the bottom of the file. He speaks only once. If they mock him, walk away, then we show them the truth. The general dropped the file. He looked out the window, and far in the distance, behind the glow of the stars, something darker began to move. Something that had waited. Something that had listened. Something that would now act. Rumors in the void. 3 days after the human negotiator walked out, the Galactic Council tried to pretend nothing had happened. But something had changed. On the second moon of Delvara Prime, 3 scout ships vanished. They didn't send distress signals. They simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, not captured. Just gone. The council blamed solar storms, but some knew better. In the communication room of the Threxian fleet, a young officer watched the last recording from one of the missing ships. The feed was corrupted. Static everywhere, but for a split second something flashed across the screen. A symbol. It looked like a flame inside a broken circle. She froze. She had seen that symbol before. In an old restricted file marked Earth, Class Black Threats. She ran to her superior, shaking. "Sir, I think this is a human signature." The commander barely glanced at it. "Don't start those rumors again. The humans are weak. They ran from the table, remember?" "But sir, the file says if this symbol appears, it means the silent protocol has been activated." The commander's smile vanished. "You weren't supposed to read that file. She didn't answer, because by the time he turned back to the screen, it was blank. Even the symbol had vanished. Elsewhere, in a hidden part of the galactic archives, a very old alien with wrinkled skin and 4 glowing eyes sat in silence. He had served during the old wars. He had seen what humans did when words failed. A soft knock came to his door. A messenger entered. Elder, the human negotiator. He walked out. The old alien closed his eyes. Then it has begun, he whispered. Foolish counsel. They mocked the one man who held back the storm. What should we do? The messenger asked. Pray they forgive you, the elder said, and hide. The galaxy just stepped into its own grave. Meanwhile, deep in the neutral zone near Sector 19, a pirate crew intercepted a strange unmarked ship drifting without power. No life signs. They boarded it. Inside was nothing but silence. No crew. No data. No engines. But in the center of the ship, they found a black chair and a folded coat resting on it. One pirate touched the coat. It turned to ash. Then the walls of the ship lit up. Red writing began to crawl across the metal like fire. He was peace. Now we are not. Every pirate who saw the message lost their voice that day, not because of damage, but because they chose not to speak ever again. Fear had stolen their words. Back on the capital world, the council received another report. An entire asteroid base had gone dark. No signs of life, no struggle, no explosion, just one last transmission before it went silent. He's not alone. Those were the final words, and that's when the council finally felt it. This wasn't just about one man. This was about something larger, something built into the bones of humanity itself. They thought they were dealing with a weak negotiator from a backward planet. But now they began to whisper another question. Who really was Silas Gray? The Threxian ambassador stood before the others, her feathers tight with panic. We need to call Earth, we need to fix this. Earth won't answer, said another. They've gone dark, not even civilian signals. Then send a fleet. And if that's what they want? Silence. Because deep down, they knew. This wasn't a war. They could win. This was a consequence. And consequences don't care who started it. Far beyond the stars, a small human vessel drifted through a dead sector. Inside it, Silas Gray stood alone, looking at a cracked photo in his hand. A photo of a burned planet. Behind him, figures began to appear. Tall, silent, in strange armor. Not human, not alien. They had waited for his signal. He didn't speak. He only nodded once, and they vanished, into the dark, faster than light. The message had been sent. Peace had ended. Now, silence would teach the lesson. The ghost of Earth's wars. The galaxy had seen many wars. Civil wars, planetary invasions, border conflicts, even the great plasma storms of the Krell sector, but none of them had prepared the Council for what was now unfolding. Ships were disappearing. Not just destroyed, disappearing. Entire fleets went dark, their last transmissions cut short by a strange humming sound and a cold whisper no one could trace. Some called it madness, others called it ghosts. But those who had faced Earth before, they called it something else. Judgment, in the archives of the Zarthan Temple, a forbidden text was unlocked for the first time in 200 years. It was written in a dead language burned into metal plates. Only 3 words were carved across the cover. Never mock Earth. Meanwhile, on the Council homeworld, panic was no longer a whisper. It was a scream. Leaders blamed each other. Some said Earth was bluffing. Others wanted to surrender immediately. But there was no one to surrender to. Earth had gone silent. No broadcasts, no ambassadors, no answers. Just quiet. And silence from Earth was the loudest threat the galaxy had ever heard. Then came the message. Not from a human, but from a machine. An old satellite drifted into a trade route between the Drak and the Ullman species. It was ancient, rusted, falling apart, but as soon as a patrol ship scanned it, the satellite came alive. The words it spoke were clear, in every known galactic tongue. They laughed at the negotiator. They chose war. Earth will not fight. Earth will remind. Then it exploded, not into fire, but into light. Thousands of small drones burst from its core, spreading across space, each carrying one message. Each drone landed in a different system, on moons, on ships, on space stations. And the message was always the same. He was your last chance. In the shadow region of the Threxian Empire, General Callus, a hardened warlord with cybernetic arms and a heart made of stone, stood before a hologram of Silas Gray. It was a still image, taken from the council's meeting days ago. This man, Callus said, was no ordinary negotiator. His advisors nodded. He survived the fall of Titan. He stopped the Vorlak uprising with words, and he once convinced the fire monks of Raisin to burn their own weapons. Callus touched the screen. He has done what no army could do. But now, he has chosen silence. General, one officer said, should we prepare for war? No, Callus said. Prepare for history to erase us. On the edge of known space, a lonely station picked up a strange energy wave. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a signal. It was a memory. A replay of the Battle of Zeta 9, a battle the galaxy had hidden from its citizens. The battle where humans turned a black hole into a weapon. The recording played itself again and again across public channels. Children saw it. Soldiers saw it. Even citizens of peaceful worlds saw the truth. Humans had ended that war in one strike, and they had promised never to do it again. But that promise came with a warning. Never insult the one who offers peace. Back at the Galactic Council, a desperate vote was held. Should they beg for forgiveness? Should they send a gift? Should they offer a planet in return? No answer came. Not from Earth, not from Silas Gray, just silence. But then something strange happened. A small freighter ship entered the council system, leaking fuel, damaged and barely alive. The crew was gone. Only one item was found on board. A single piece of black cloth woven into it were tiny silver letters. We begged once, now we walk alone. The council finally understood. This wasn't war. This was a reminder of what they had forgotten. Earth was not a force of destruction. Earth was a force of balance. And when balance is mocked, the ghost of war comes walking, and his name is Silas Gray. Echoes of old wrath. Long ago, before the Galactic Council even existed, there were whispers about Earth. Not many records survived from that time, but the few that did were locked away. Forbidden. Sealed behind codes only the oldest empires still remembered. Now those records were being opened again, because Silas Gray had vanished. And in his silence, the galaxy trembled. On the icy world of Year 3, where no species dared build cities due to the planet's shifting storms, an ancient vault cracked open on its own. The vault had no power, no code, yet its door opened with a soft hiss. Inside was a single hologram, flickering with age. It showed a man, human, walking alone through fire. Behind him were alien ruins, still burning. He wore a coat like the one Silas had left behind. The caption under the image was short. When peace ends, he remembers. Back in the Capitol chambers, the council gathered once more, but this time, no one laughed, no one mocked, because the number of missing fleets had reached 37. Entire colonies were vanishing, one by one, and always in silence. No weapon traces, no warnings, no survivors, just blackened ground, and a strange mark carved into stone, a circle broken down the middle, a mark now recognized as his signature. General Solon of the Luxari Defense Alliance stood up in the chamber. "This is not war," he growled. "This is punishment." "Punishment for what?" asked a trembling voice. Solon looked at them all. His eyes were red, tired. For laughing at the one man who came with peace in his hands, he turned on the holoscreen. It showed a map of the outer rim. This line, he pointed, used to be full of stations, all gone, every one of them after Silas left the council. Why didn't he attack us directly? Another asked. Solon gave a bitter smile. Because this isn't revenge. This is a message. Then one by one emergency alerts began to ring across the council chamber, first from the southern fringe, then from the central core, then from the skies above their own world. Every ship that tried to launch failed. Every weapon they powered up, shut down. And then, without warning, the lights dimmed. A single hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. It was not Silas. It was not a human. It was an alien species no one had seen before. Old, armored in dark stone and glowing veins. The being said only this, "He speaks for us now." Then it vanished. Everyone in the chamber turned to each other, confused, afraid. "Who are they?" someone whispered. "I've seen them before," said an old council elder, barely able to speak. "They are the first ones, the forgotten ones, the ancient allies of Earth. They vanished after the first wars. They were believed extinct. He found them?" Another counselor gasped. "No," the elder said slowly, voice cracking. "They found him. On the far side of the galaxy, in the ruins of a human outpost abandoned decades ago. Silas Gray stood alone. Behind him, the stone-armored beings stood in complete silence. He bent down and picked up a broken plaque from the dust. It read, "Peacekeeper Base 017, never fire first." He looked at it for a long time, then dropped it. It shattered. He whispered 4 words. They broke the rule. The sky above the planet split. Ships not powered by technology but by memory itself rose into the stars. No engines. No lights. Just shadows. They moved faster than light. They didn't show on radars. They weren't made of metal. They were made of grief. And grief was coming. The Allies' panic. Panic spread like fire. Systems that once stood tall, proud, and united under the Galactic Council now turned on each other. Allies began to argue, then fight. Embassies were shut. Promises shattered. Everyone had the same fear. They didn't want to be next. The name Silas Gray was now spoken like a curse. In the western reaches, the Threxian Empire, one of the oldest council members, sent an emergency message to Earth. They begged for mercy. No answer. Instead, their strongest battleship, the Soul Eater, went offline. When search teams arrived, they found it floating near a dead star. The crew was gone. No damage. No bodies. Just helmets, armor, and weapons lying neatly in rows. A single word was scratched into the command table. Remember, back at the Galactic, Capital Trust collapsed. Council leaders accused each other of provoking the humans. Some claimed Silas was a lone wolf. Others believed Earth had sent him as bait. "He was never alone," said one frightened ambassador. "We just didn't see the others. Now they're everywhere." Secret meetings took place in the shadows. Plans to betray one another. Offers to surrender Earth's location. Bribes to save their own species. But no one knew what Earth wanted anymore. Because Earth wasn't speaking. Earth had vanished. All human colonies had gone dark. Ships no longer traveled. Stations were abandoned. It was as if the entire species had stepped behind a curtain and pulled the galaxy with them. On a distant trade world, a Luxari merchant was arrested for screaming in the streets. He held a torn datapad, shouting, "They walk the stars again, the ones who never die." His words made no sense, until someone played the message on the pad. It was a voice, cold, sharp, not Silas, but something older. It said, "You asked why he left. It's because your laughter was louder than your wisdom." That message reached 1,000,000 systems in hours. Fear turned into collapse. The allies of the Council, who once stood tall with fleets and pride, now turned their ships toward home. No one trusted the others. Everyone feared being next. On the planet of Vernus 7, where humans once fought to protect civilians during a war not of their own, a monument still stood, tall and forgotten. It was shaped like a hand reaching up from the ground. That monument began to glow. No one touched it. No one knew how, and carved across the base was a phrase that had not been there before. He was here once. You should have listened. The people of Vernus 7 held silent prayer that night. Not out of love, but out of fear. They had once called the humans barbarians in suits. Now they called them the unseen sword. On another world, the council tried to hold one last summit, one final gathering of species who still believed peace could be saved. But just before it began, every light in the chamber went dark. In the center of the room, a single chair appeared, made of black glass. On it rested something chilling, Silas Gray's coat, the same one he had worn when he walked out. No one saw who brought it. No one heard. The doors open, but everyone understood what it meant. He is watching. On the council's main screen, a new symbol appeared, the same circle with the broken line. It pulsed softly. Then came a voice. Not Silas, not a human, but a voice that seemed to echo from time itself. Peace was the offer. You chose to laugh. Now we unmake what you built. The council tried to respond, but no message could be sent, because at that moment, every communication array in the galaxy shut down. Every signal tower blinked once, then died. Silence. Not just in words, but in systems, in hearts, in stars. Across every world, people began to look at the sky with new fear. They knew something was coming, something that couldn't be stopped, because it had already arrived. When Earth stands alone, no one knew where Earth had gone. Satellites sent to scan the solar system returned blind, or not at all. Some claimed Earth had cloaked itself behind a dark field, impossible to breach. Others said Earth had moved. That the humans had taken their homeworld and left. The truth was more terrifying. Earth was still there. It was simply watching, and it no longer cared to be found. On the council world of Zareth, panic reached its peak. Riots broke out. Civilians turned against soldiers. Statues of council leaders were torn down and replaced with blank walls. People whispered a new phrase in every language. They offered peace. We offered insult. Now, with systems collapsing and allies retreating into silence, only one voice rose to speak. It was not from the council, not from the military. It was from Earth. Single human broadcast went live across the galaxy. No warning, no encryption. No demand, just a calm, clear voice. A woman. She stood in a simple room dressed in gray, with a single Earth symbol behind her. We are not your enemy, she said softly. But we will not be your joke. When we speak of peace, we mean it. When we offer a hand, we do not expect you to spit in it. She paused. Then her eyes, cold and tired, stared into the camera. You laughed at the wrong man. And now, silence walks beside us. The feed ended, but the damage had been done, because everywhere, on every planet, in every system, things began to break. Weapons refused to fire. Defense systems stopped working. Gates, that connected star systems, shut down, and no one knew how. On a forgotten mining moon, a lone engineer checked the core systems. His fingers shook. There was no virus, no power drain. Instead, the logs showed one strange line repeating endlessly. System neutralized. Earth Protocol 7 engaged. He whispered the words again and again. Earth Protocol 7. Earth Protocol 7. No one had heard of it before, and that was the point. Because Protocol 7 was not a weapon. It was a memory. A silent command buried deep in galactic tech, older than any current civilization. No one knew the humans had helped build the very systems the galaxy depended on. And now, they had turned the key. On the planet of Crossall, where the sky was always red and storms never stopped, a group of children played near the ruins of an old human outpost. One of them kicked a rock and found a metal box. They opened it. Inside was a message printed on old paper. It said, "We only wanted to be heard. You chose to laugh. Now you will listen, with nothing but silence. Back in the council chambers, leaders begged for answers, but their messages couldn't reach anyone. Even the stars above their world dimmed as if ashamed. Someone shouted, "Prepare for war," but a general replied, "With what weapons? With what fleets? We are blind now." In a dark room, one council elder wept. She had seen the humans fight in the first rebellion. She had watched a single squad of Earth soldiers stand against armies, using only willpower and tactics, but she had never imagined they could win without fighting. This was worse. They were winning with silence. Because when humans no longer wish to speak, that is when you begin to lose. Far across space, on the edge of a dying star, a ship shaped like a blade drifted into orbit. On its surface was written a single phrase. He asked for peace. You gave him pride. Now pride will be buried. Inside the ship stood Silas Gray. He was no longer just a negotiator. He was a shadow, a symbol, the voice of all who had once begged for peace and were given shame instead. He looked at the stars. So many, so silent. They used to laugh at silence. Now, they feared it. The day silence won. On the final day, the galaxy went quiet. Not from battle, not from peace, but from something far colder, acceptance. The Galactic Council no longer sent messages. No ships moved. No plans were made. Systems that once ruled trade, war, and diplomacy had fallen into shadows. For the first time in known history, every species waited, not for invasion, not for surrender, but for a decision. Because they had finally realized something too late. The war had already happened, and they had already lost. Not through fire or weapons, but through the silence of one, and far above the Council's capital world, a strange storm formed. Not of clouds, not of plasma, but of memory. It shimmered with fragments of light, broken voices, whispers of what had been said and what had been ignored. The people gathered across their cities, eyes turned skyward, breath held. Then, for the first time in weeks, a sound returned. A pulse, a signal, and with it, a message played. Across every screen, every wall, every floating drone in space, a voice. Soft, clear, human. You mocked our peace, you called us weak. You laughed at the man who offered hope. You forgot that silence is not empty. It is full of consequences. The screen flashed. Images appeared of old battles, of burned planets, of the many times humans had chosen peace and been punished for it. Then, the final image came, Silas Gray, standing alone, looking directly into the camera. He did not speak. He didn't need to. His eyes said everything. Behind him stood thousands of figures, not soldiers, not machines, but guardians of the forgotten. The first ones, the old allies, the silent protectors. They bowed to him, and then the screen went black, but the voice spoke one last line. This is not revenge. This is a reminder. Peace is not weakness, and silence is not surrender. Silence is the last thing you hear before the storm. And then came the final act. Every defense, grid in the galaxy rebooted. Every communication line turned back on. Every planet system powered up. But none of it was theirs anymore. They could use it, but they could never control it. Because now, every screen, every ship, every city had one permanent addition. A new symbol glowing faintly in the corner. The broken circle. His mark. It wasn't a flag. It was a warning. Never forget again, on the world of Alestra. A child looked at the sky and asked her mother, "Will he come back?" The mother knelt, touching her daughter's hair gently. "No," she whispered. "He doesn't need to." Because legend had replaced his presence. He had become something greater than fear, greater than war, greater than peace. He had become the voice that rose only once, and when no one listened, he had become the silence that spoke louder than any scream. And that was the day the galaxy finally understood. The human negotiator never wanted war. But the moment they laughed at him, they gave birth to something they could never silence again.